Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his will, and Jill came tumbling after.
I used to have a vision board. Oh yes, honey, I was that person. Corkboard covered in magazine cutouts of dream houses and inspirational quotes in fancy fonts, stuck to my bedroom wall like some kind of manifestation shrine. The centerpiece was this photo of a power couple in matching business suits, striding confidently up the steps of what looked like a very important building, briefcases in hand, ready to conquer the corporate world together. That was going to be me and my then boyfriend. We had it all figured out. He'd finish his MBA, I'd get promoted to senior management, we'd buy a house in the suburbs with a 2-car garage and a golden retriever named something aspirational like success or victory. We were Jack and Jill, and we were going up that hill together to fetch our pail of achievement water. Spoiler alert, we did not make it to the top with our water intact. He dropped out of business school to find himself, which apparently involved finding himself in someone else's bed. I got laid off during a corporate restructuring. Turns out being ambitious doesn't make you recession-proof. The vision board became a cruel joke staring at me from my childhood bedroom wall after I had to move back in with my parents at age 28. That's when I really heard this nursery rhyme for the first time. Not the sing-song version I'd mindlessly chanted as a kid, but the brutal truth of it. Sometimes you set off together with the best intentions, and sometimes you both end up flat on your asses at the bottom of the hill, wondering what the hell just happened. And that's when the shadow work really begins. Before we dive into the psychological carnage this little rhyme represents, let me give you the historical context that'll make you never hear this song the same way again. Because surprise, surprise, this innocent children's ditty might actually be about execution and political upheaval. Some historians trace Jack and Jill back to the French Revolution. Jack was supposedly King Louis XVI, and Jill was Marie Antoinette. They went up the hill, rose to power, tried to fetch their pail of water, maintain their reign, but Jack fell down and broke his crown, literally got his head chopped off, and Jill came tumbling after. Also got the guillotine treatment just a bit later. Imagine teaching kids a song about beheading monarchs while they're learning to count to 10. That's some next-level historical processing right there. But wait, there's more. Other folklorists think it's about taxation. In the 17th century, King Charles I tried to raise taxes on liquid measures. Jack was a generic term for a common man, Jill was a generic term for a common woman, and the hill was the increased tax burden. When the tax hike failed, Jack fell down, it took the whole economy with it. Jill came tumbling after. So we've got political execution, economic collapse, or, and this is my personal favorite theory, it's about a couple who literally went up a hill to get water and had a spectacular accident that became local legend. Because sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one, and sometimes people just fall down hills while carrying water. Either way, the message is the same. Plans go sideways, partnerships fail, and when one person falls, the other often gets dragged down too. Here's what gets me about Jack and Jill. They didn't set off on solo missions. They went up that hill together with a shared goal, probably supporting each other every step of the way. This wasn't about individual failure. This was about collective catastrophe. And honey, let me tell you, there's something uniquely devastating about watching a shared dream implode. When you fail alone, at least you only have to deal with your own disappointment. But when you're part of a partnership, romantic, business, friendship, family, and the whole thing comes crashing down, you're dealing with compound grief. You're not just mourning the loss of the dream. You're mourning the loss of the person you thought you were building that dream with. You're dealing with the messy reality that shared visions don't guarantee shared commitment, that walking up the hill together doesn't mean you'll both make it to the top. The shadow work in Jack and Jill isn't just about dealing with failure. It's about examining the stories we tell ourselves about partnership, success, and what we think we need to fetch from the top of that hill. Let's start with the most obvious shadow, the part of you that can't imagine going up any hills alone. This is the version of you that always needs a Jill for your Jack, a partner in crime, a somebody else to validate your dreams and make them feel real. I see this shadow everywhere. People who can't start a business without a co-founder. People who won't travel solo because it's not fun alone. People who abandon their goals the minute their partner loses interest, because apparently dreams are only worth pursuing if someone else thinks they're worth pursuing too. The shadow here is the part of you that believes you're not capable of getting your own damn water, that your dreams are only legitimate if someone else shares them, that success only counts if there's someone there to witness it and celebrate it with you. And when your Jill decides they'd rather go up a different hill, or when they stumble and take you down with them, you're left thinking the problem was the partnership instead of recognizing that maybe you never learned how to trust your own feet. Then there's the flip side, the shadow that turns every shared journey into a race. This is the version of you that's secretly hoping your Jack will trip so you can be the one who makes it to the top first. This shadow shows up in business partnerships where you're keeping score of who's contributing more, in romantic relationships where you're competing to be the more successful one, in friendships where you're secretly relieved when they stumble because it means you're winning. The shadow here is the part of you that can't collaborate without competing, can't support someone else's success without diminishing your own sense of worth. It's the voice that whispers, if they succeed, there's less success available for me. And here's the kicker. When you're busy hoping for your partner to fall, you're not paying attention to your own footing. You end up tumbling down the hill anyway, usually right along with them, because turns out spite is not great fuel for sustainable success. And then there's the shadow that might be the most insidious of all, the part of you that secretly wants to be Jill, the one who falls down after Jack, not because you lost your footing, but because you chose to follow him down. This is the shadow of the noble sacrifice, the beautiful tragedy of going down with the ship. It shows up when you abandon your own dreams to support someone else's, when you make yourself smaller so they can feel bigger, when you convince yourself that love means always putting their goals before yours. The shadow here is the part of you that finds identity in being needed, in being the supportive one, in being the person who's always willing to tumble after. It's the voice that says, at least if we fail together, I'm not failing alone. But here's the thing about martyrdom. It's not actually love. It's fear. Fear of finding out what you're capable of on your own. Fear of discovering that maybe you didn't need to be carried up that hill in the first place. So what are we actually trying to fetch from the top of that hill? What's the water we think we need so badly that we're willing to risk everything to get it? Most of the time, it's not water at all. It's validation. It's proof that we matter, that we're capable, that we deserve the good stuff in life. We tell ourselves we're going up the hill for practical reasons, the house, the promotion, the relationship milestone, the creative breakthrough. But really, we're chasing something much more fundamental, the feeling of being enough. And here's the shadow truth that Jack and Jill reveals. You can't fetch enough from outside yourself. It's not waiting for you at the top of any hill. It's not something you can carry back in a pail no matter how carefully you climb or how strong your partnership is. The water you're really after, the sense of worth, of belonging, of being fundamentally okay in the world, that's not something you fetch. That's something you recognize you've been carrying all along. But let's talk about what happens when your climbing partner takes a tumble and you have a choice. Do you keep going up the hill, or do you come tumbling after? This is where the shadow work gets really personal, because we've all been in this situation. The business partner who gives up, the spouse who stops trying, the friend who gets stuck in their own drama and can't show up for your dreams anymore. And in those moments, you find out what you're really made of. Are you climbing this hill because you believe in the journey, or just because you don't want to be alone? Are you committed to getting that water, or were you just along for the company? I've watched people abandon perfectly good dreams the minute their partner loses interest, like the goal was never actually theirs to begin with. I've also watched people use their partner's failure as an excuse to quit, when really they were looking for an exit strategy all along. But I've also watched people keep climbing, keep going after their water even when they have to carry their own pail, even when the hill is steeper and lonelier than they expected. And you know what? Sometimes they make it to the top. Sometimes they get their water and realize it tastes better when you've earned it yourself. Here's what I've learned from my own spectacular tumbles down various metaphorical hills. The water was never at the top anyway. All those times I thought I needed to fetch something from outside myself. Approval, security, love, validation, proof of my worth. It turned out I was carrying it with me the whole time. Not in some woo-woo mystical way, but in the most practical sense. The capacity to be okay, to figure things out, to bounce back from failure, to find meaning and purpose and connection, regardless of whether my external goals pan out exactly as planned. The hill is just exercise. The climb is just practice. The water is just an excuse to discover what you're capable of when you stop waiting for someone else to carry your pail. And sometimes the most valuable thing you can learn is how to fall well, how to tumble without taking everyone else down with you, how to get back up and assess whether this hill is worth another attempt or whether there's a different hill with better water that's actually calling your name. So the next time you hear Jack and Jill went up the hill, don't just think about two people who had a really bad day fetching water. Think about the courage it takes to pursue shared dreams knowing they might not work out. Think about the wisdom of learning to climb alone when necessary. Think about the grace of getting back up after you fall. And maybe that's not failure at all. Maybe that's exactly what we were supposed to learn on that hill in the first place.